My name is Jimmy Maxwell, and I'm chatting with Staxx.
Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Jimmy Maxwell.
Hey, how are you doing, Staxx?
How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm glad to be sitting here chatting with Staxx.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, it's an honor, brother.
So you have an insane story. Pretty wild one.
Well, it's been a long road, through my life, for sure.
So where were you born and raised?
I was born in Guyman, Oklahoma. It's just a little town in the panhandle of Oklahoma. And I was raised in El Paso, Texas, probably more than any place.
What was your life like?
Well, it was, at the beginning of it was kind of turbulent. Me and my stepfather didn't get along very well. I mean, from the get-go, I'm not even sure why. I was too young, but I do know that once my dad beat him up when I was about 4, from that point on, it was he hated me from that moment. I guess every time he looked at me, he saw my dad, which is doesn't surprise me, but it is what it is. I can't really blame my life on my childhood. I've had a lot of friends that's had a lot worse than I did, but it was a battlefield for sure.
Were you getting in trouble at an early age?
Well, when you have when you live in an environment like that, I think it kind of pushes you out towards that because you want to get away from the inside of your home life and go outside of your home life. So you're like, you find other outlets, and generally when you're young, and you find outlets outside the home, it's not good.
Definitely.
It leads to crime. Absolutely.
So what type of stuff were you getting into?
From the earliest time, I mean, when I was like 10, I was running away from home at that time. And you live on shoplifting, if you're running away and you're a kid, that's how you eat. That's how you smoke. That's how you do everything, but I was still too early and too young to really do anything and stay gone very long. It was just, I just didn't want to be there. It was, he did not like me, like I said. And so it was just that. Anyway, he kind of choked me out when I was about 10, and my mom caught him. It was just one of those things. He just, I was a brat for sure. I'm not gonna lie, but he was, he grabbed me and pulled me into his shop and was choking me, and I was crying, and he's yelling at me not to cry, and he's, and my mom come out there and caught him before I actually passed out. She sent me to my dad at 10. So I went and lived with him for 3 years in different parts of the country, which it had its own set of problems because my dad was a pretty big guy. My stepdad wasn't so big, but my dad was.
Were you a little more cautious with your dad?
Well, he was a little more. Well, he was an alcoholic at that time. So, I mean, it was it had its own set of issues. You know what I mean?
So you traveled around with your dad?
Yeah, my dad and my stepmom, we lived in like Wabash, Indiana, Marysville, Ohio, Hutchinson, Minnesota, stuff like that, Lincoln, Nebraska.
Were you going to different schools?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was interesting, but it was also, it was also, made for a kid that was trying to fit in all the time. And, and the way I fit in was being, I fit in more with the kids that smoke dope around, under the trees, than the jocks, even though I was kind of a jock, but I still was that's just where I fit in better. So,
yeah. So when was your first time you got into serious trouble?
Well, the first time I got into serious trouble was, I got kicked out of the house when I was 13. I went back to El Paso, and, by then I had been I was dealing with a much bigger, more violent person. And I went back to my stepdad, who was not, and he didn't look as big and as intimidating, as scary as he used to. And so first time he came at me, I went after him. Now he won the fight. I'm not going to lie, but he knew that it was not going to be that way for very much longer. So he kicked me out a couple of weeks later. And so I ran around, and I fell in with some people that ran back and forth across the border, and I was watching their house one time, and while they were gone, and when a couple of freaking hobos tried to rob it, and honestly, they had me there for a minute, but the tables turned, and I ended up stabbing one pretty bad, and from that point on, they dealt with the fallout. The cops didn't really get involved, but it was better for me to leave Texas. So I went back to Oklahoma, and then actually got what sent me to boys home was I was up in Oklahoma when my mother told me that my stepfather had kind of done something that was, I don't know. She tells me that she didn't tell me he slapped her. She tells me that today, and I'm like, you did tell me he slapped you. But she changed it to pushing her, and that doesn't really matter. The point is I was like 15 and oil field strong at the time, and I was fixing to go back and tear his freaking head off. So I sold some tires for my Ford Galaxy, and I was headed back that direction when they caught me. So that got me sent to a boys' home, which started my whole career I was almost 16. I was still 15 at the time.
So what's it like walking into the boys' home for the first time?
Well, as much trouble as I'd been in already, it was still intimidating. I ain't gonna lie. You don't know what's going on. There was big buildings, fences around it, and it was cold, and it was just frigid when I went. And it was, and as I walked up, I could see all these faces looking at me through the bars and the windows of this big building. And I'm like, all I knew is that, you have to stand up, and you have to be strong. You can't show any weakness. Same thing in prison, but as far as in the boys' home, you don't really know how to do all that yet. You're you just have to live with your life experience, what you got, which I had some, I've been around a little bit enough. I've been around enough. Put it that way.
But you learn as you go, right?
You do learn as you go. You get better, and you get stronger, and you get, but that's a double-edged sword, because the stronger you get, the more violent you get, the more reputation you get, the more they want to keep you away from regular people. And that's been my curse of my whole life, honestly, so it seems like.
Yeah, being in solitary confinement and just keep you locked away. But do you find, like, when you get a reputation, that people want to test you more too?
Yeah, in some ways, for sure. It's like me. I've always had I'm not a bully. I've never been a bully. And so a lot of the times what my problems are with is the bully type. And that's really what gave me a reputation, because, they all have this touch hog, reputation. And so you take down, you start working your way through them, it kind of boosts, it just makes it that more poignant, but, so, yeah, there is that. You're right. There's that. I've had a few fights and battles just because of that, for sure.
How long did you stay in the boys' home for?
I aged out, and I got out. I'm back in a couple of times, to be honest, but in the end, I aged out. We ended up I ended up in a worse place than I started. But if you can, kind of worse. The guards, the guards kind of, as I went in, weren't that bad to begin with, but there was a section of guards that were like the goon squad that was abusive and pieces of shit. And they kind of dealt with more of the kids that was in like the ADSEG type area, which I didn't actually get into until I had escaped a couple of times. And then they thought they were going to teach me a lesson. Well, honestly, they did teach me a lesson. You know, I'm not going to lie. I ended up with a boot freaking print size of my head, and they fucked me up. But in the end, but I learned how to fight them. Because they weren't done just with one time, and it wasn't just me. When I got finally put in the ad seg, all them other kids were up there. I finally learned why they called it hell instead of Helena. Up to that point, I didn't really understand it, but they warned me. They were telling me. I just thought they were just wanting me to. I just thought they were juicing me, but until they come in there and they run in on me, and then, but it would happen, every couple of nights. And so I learned to get my handcuffs off and my restraints. A lot of them were leather. And so one time they come in, I had covered my window, and I had squirted shampoo and water on that floor. And I had a water bottle ready for the light bulb that was above me. And they were like, take this window, cover this window, uncover this window. And I'm like, it's like, come and get me. I wanted them mad. I was talking, you fucking child abuse and pig, and boy, they were mad. They come rushing in that door when they got it open, and I was on that bed. I squirted the light, and it went out, and I just jumped on them. I still had cuffs on because of the last time they whooped me. I couldn't get all that off, but I got all the leather off, and I just dove on them, and we battled it out, and they me up too. Still in the end, but I fucked them up too. I messed one up pretty good. And but and it was all a learning experience. Finally they let me out. This really nice laundry lady, she was also working in the feeding us and stuff, and she found me up there like that, beat up. That was the boot prints and all that, and she got really upset. So she went to the director or whoever was in charge of that place, and she said it's been happening a lot. So she threw a fit, not just about me, about the whole thing. And they started letting some of us out of that ad seg thing. Well, I kind of graduated out of there, and they kind of backed up off of me. And I started dealing with the coach there, and we started doing it with boxing and whatnot. And I ended up getting out for a while, and then I came back later on for some other shit that happened on the street, and my parole was violated and whatever. And when I got back, well, that lady actually got murdered while right before I left. They finally they paroled a bunch of us. This laundry lady was actually murdered, and
in the prison.
In the boys' home, yes. It was a horrible thing.
Wow.
The guy that did it lived right across the hall from me. And, I really liked this lady because she helped me, so it was a personal thing, really. But they let a bunch of us out because they were trying to clear it out. And so when I ended up going back, that the whole mentality of that place had changed. I was warned when I went in. One of the guards that was taking me in, he said, things have changed a lot since this happened. There's a lot of raw nerves still, and the little crew that had been running around just kind of bashing up on the guys in the ad seg their attitude had kind of taken over this place. They kind of steered a little more clear of me, though. I don't know why. Maybe because they knew I don't know, because they'd already hurt me, or maybe because I hurt them. I don't know. But they were really fucking over other kids. And finally, someone asked me, he got himself in a big jam, and I knew they were going to hurt him bad. And here they come. And I don't know. We had it. And as soon as I went over and started gunning them down, the whole freaking unit went after them, and we took over the unit and tore the phone out, threw the freaking house parent, whatever you call them, out of there, threw them guards out, and pretty
it's a
damn
riot,
sane.
basically, like a riot.
It was definitely an insurrection. You're right.
Yeah. How long did that go on for?
Oh no, it was only a few hours. When you looked out the window, they had surrounded it within, I don't know, an hour and a half with just, I mean, every farmer, rancher, and law enforcement was standing out there with billy clubs and tire irons, and they had the whole thing surrounded. And our unit anyway. And the kids in there, all kids, come on, coppers, you'll never take us alive and shit, and all that crap. And but here the coach, actually the guy that was leading the bunch the first time when they hurt me, he actually had changed his attitude. I don't know what did it, but he seemed remorseful about how he'd been. So he and the coach, they came to me. We let them in, and they told me that, listen, they're going to take this. They're going to use their mat. They still have a lot of hatred for what happened to Mrs. Fullerton. And they are going to hurt you guys because, it gives them an excuse to. And, and I'm like, I understood what was going to happen to my friends. And then they told me that, and there was a couple of my friends that were getting ready to turn 18 not too long, and they were like, listen, if you do, you can come out of here now and trust me, they're gonna try to, because I broke that guy that left the footprint on me. He was in that bunch and I broke his jaw. I guess he ended up going to the hospital over it, actually, because he didn't actually see me coming. They were over there trying to beat this one guy up when I come in there and I slid him, and it just was. And so I was getting charged for that, and nothing I could do about that. And so I may end up even, they told me I may even get, charged as an adult. But if I didn't let this stop, they're going to come in and it was going to happen. And a lot of people were going to get hurt. And all my friends that were close to being 18 were going to go as adults. And there was going to be this and that happen to them. And of course, they're all like, hey, we'll ride to the end of the earth for you, whatever, don't, but I mean, if you're friends, you don't do that to your friends. And it was going to happen anyway. So I ended the thing and went with them. They put me in the county jail. But, the fact is like the coach that liked me so much, he kind of told me before I went out, he said, I wouldn't worry too much because this guy's been in a lot of trouble, for things he's done. And he said, I'm going to talk to the prosecutor and I'm going to be honest about it. He said, so let's see. And so what, nothing ever happened. They ended up coming to get me and take me to another boys' home that was off in Sand Springs that they called Little Mac, because Big Mac is McAllister where all the adults are. And, it was a new place and it was a whole nother experience.
You have a place out here that I went to called Little Cheshire.
Yeah.
It's similar to that. They got Big Cheshires, the adult side. And
there you go. Exactly.
But
exactly.
it's like a mini prison. It's
Absolutely.
Just like prison.
Yeah. And the kids are, when you're kids, you all are just, you're trying to, you're just emulating how you think prison's supposed to be. So, sometimes it's even worse than the actual prison,
And them kids don't look like little kids.
No, you're, that's for a fact.
I'm like, that's a kid? No, that's a grown man. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, that's right.
He's 15. He's like 6'4".
Yeah, no.
How old are you when you get out of that?
I went to that other place and I escaped a couple times and we had our own little, we had it happen or whatnot.
How'd you escape?
Oh, well, one time, this kid come over out there playing softball and he said, hey, Jimmy, I've untwisted this only had one fence around it. It was a tall fence, but he said they'd been over and he untwisted one of the wires in this fence. And he said, we got a hole in the fence. And so we ended up, there was about 5 or 6 of us going to go, we all went over there and I took a baseball bat over there with me. And then everybody started shooting through the hole in the fence. and I stood there with the ball bat because the guards obviously saw what was going on, and and I got stuck kind of behind because I'm the one holding the bat, and they're like, but I didn't really trust anybody else to do it. But anyway, my little Mexican friend, he come in there and pulled me back. Come on, Max, come on, and I made it, and we got through there, and we ran off into the fields, and it took probably 5 or 6 hours, and we ended up getting caught.
But it's surrounded by nothing, right?
Well, there was a river. The next time that we escaped, I'd noticed that the fence, there was two youth centers, the one that we were in, and there's another one for younger people that didn't do the same kind of crimes that we had over there. But there was a fence that connected the two, and it went to the fence we were surrounded with was super high, and the whole top of it you couldn't get your fingers in, so you couldn't climb it. But this fence that connected from the building to the fence that separated it had the bar that went across on the inside of that other section, and it was connected. So somebody come and told me that he thought he could kick the back door open, and I didn't know that he could. It was a solid steel door with a big bolt lock and all that. And
yeah,
I thought, well, okay, if you can do it, I'll be right there with you. And I'll tell you, the way we can get out of here is to get up on that roof and shimmy a clone on the back side of that thing and over that fence and drop it on the ground. And so he started out from the very back, old chunky dude, but he was pretty fast and he was solid and he was going to kill him. As I saw him run into that door, and I thought either he's going to die and crush himself or that door is going to open. And so I committed to it. I took off running too, because I thought, it's got to open or else, and that door busted open, and there were 5 of us took off out that thing, and we all jumped up on that roof and shimmied across. And it was just me and another guy that was willing to swim the river. It had a low water dam, and it had a big dam. And so at nighttime, when in the daytime you're looking at that river, the reason that me and him were willing to swim this river is because in the daytime it looks like you could almost get mostly across it on sandbars, but at night, we didn't know that they let the water out of the big dam and it fills up. But so it's a long way across. It's probably a quarter mile across, and so, but we knew that there was shallow spots. We could see it during the day, so we went ahead and took the chance. And I had long jeans on and a long sleeve shirt on, high top tennis shoes, which is a bad combination for swimming. But
weigh you down in the water.
Oh man, yeah. My buddy. Well, the other 3 guys weren't willing to even try it. So me and my buddy, we took off, and he's a short guy, and we were out there, and it got deep kind of quick, and the current was pulling, and I'm fighting it, and because once you commit. Once you commit, you're committed. There's no going back. And so all of a sudden I seen him out come more, about 20 feet ahead of me. And I'm like, I was trying to find out if he was swimming or what. And he was gurgling and shit. And so I went down to take my shoes off. Somewhere along the way, I could feel myself tumbling around, and I felt like I better check to make sure I can still touch the ground.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of scary, and I couldn't. And when I looked over to where I had been, I was already washed out pretty good ways. So I had to just commit. There was nothing I could do except just go for it. And every time I tried to swim with all them clothes on, it was just dragging me down, like you were saying. So I ended up getting on my back, so where I could just kind of lay on my back, keep my feet, my tennis shoes above the water, and kick. And I couldn't even swim like that. I had to swim So it was, I could see a big giant newspaper in the sky with inmate drowns, juvenile drowns in the river trying to escape, and I swear to God, I seen it in print, up there. And so I was holding on to and I knew not to panic, but I was so close to it. I kept looking over my shoulder, and the shore line looked just as far as it ever did. We were being washed down towards that low water dam. And, but I just kept going and kept going. And then I told my buddy, David, I said, brother, I don't think I'm going to make it.